Welcome to the Career Jitsu podcast. Today we have chance to talk about something that I really love to talk about, and that is how BJJ is inspiring for our youth. I would like to start with this question really is Jiu Jitsu one of the best leadership programs for kids? And I think, personally, I think it is. I may be a little biased, but I would say that a great title to our podcast today would be Youth Leadership Through BJJ, because we have an expert on that. His name is Jordan Clark. Jordan is from Adelaide, Australia, South Australia. He is a youth leader specifically for kids ages 12 to 17. So in his 4-year journey so far, he's done a lot with jujitsu that he would like to talk about. And then we will get into the connection between his training in jujitsu and how he is inspiring our youth teens in Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome to the podcast, Jordan.
Thank you for having me on. I know it's very early for me, and I'm sure it's eventually getting later for you, but it's right. I enjoy being on. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about your career, how you got into youth leadership?
Yeah, of course. So initially, I was attending church just as I normally would, and even as a kid, I was very impacted when I was in youth myself, just with how I was treated. And that had a profound impact on me and how I grew up as well. And that's helped me shape into who I am today as well, a little bit. And for me personally, I'd love to sow into the next generation of leaders, of people who are do amazing things in this world, to be a part of that and to help grow them, guide them. That sort of, I was like, great, I'd love to be a part of that. So I started chatting with the pastors, specifically the youth pastor through my church, about how to get involved. And it was like, look, Friday nights during the school term, which in Australia, that's usually late January to start of December. So yeah, that's sort of what I do.
That's awesome. And did you find jujitsu before you started being a youth leader or during the time you were being youth leader? When did you find jujitsu and how?
Yeah, so I found jiu-jitsu, I think around September 2021. And it's funny because when I started training, I had no aspirations to train jiu-jitsu. I actually started training MMA, and then it was like, you're actually good at submission wrestling. Why don't you try wrestling in a jiu-jitsu class? And I'm like, and at first I went, that seems too hard. Yeah, all right, let's do it. And then I was like, this is actually quite fun. And I wanted to get a better understanding of the sport I was watching, which is why I signed up initially.
That's awesome. So now with the jujitsu experience that you've had over the past 4 years and working with the leaders, the youth, what have you done with them? Like, can you give a little bit of a description for our listeners and our viewers about how jujitsu has impacted your abilities at work and things that you have been able to teach the kids at work?
Yeah, of course. For me personally, with jiu-jitsu, the more I've done it, the more calm I've been, just naturally. And I just feel at peace as well with it, especially with what I've been able to achieve, and just a lot of the little things I've seen from people who do start to people who are in a year in. So a lot of that wisdom, and just being able to pass that on in jiu-jitsu, where that can flow on into my youth leadership work, where I'm able to sow into these kids and shed wisdom about being calm under pressure, especially, which I think is very, very important in jiu-jitsu, which I think a lot of people would agree. So being able to bridge that from jiu-jitsu into my youth leadership work is really good.
Yeah, that's like that emotional maturity that you're teaching them, right? I think,
Exactly.
I don't know what it's like in your culture, but, in the American culture, there are a lot of times, like, there are teen programs that our behavioral programs that concentrate on helping teens with anger management.
Yeah.
Do you think that jujitsu is a really good, something to add to an anger management program for teens?
Trying to think how to carefully word that answer. It can definitely help because for some kids, doing that kind of thing can like just be like, I'm angry now. I can, I'm a world beater. I can do what I want, which is not the case. Well, shouldn't be the case, I should say, but more so like, okay, let's try and use my energy elsewhere where it's destructive to anyone else, where it's more appropriate to let out the anger, the energy in an appropriate format like jiu-jitsu, where it's safe, it's controlled, because you don't want it to, have you end up in a situation where it could, possibly lead you into scenarios you never want to be. So yeah, uh, definitely can help, but in the right way.
Right, right. So, controlling that adrenaline is important, and I think in jujitsu, you have to control your adrenaline on the mats and teaching, kids that to be able to do that, they can start applying that in their lives too. And when their adrenaline starts kicking in, staying composed and breathe, relax, breathe, and think through the situation.
Yeah, exactly. Because especially in jiu-jitsu,
Mhm.
there's like positions where it makes you feel awful. Like you just sit there and you go, why am I sitting here? But you remain calm under pressure. And as long as you can think clearly, you're all good.
Yeah, yeah. So, can we transition a little bit over to the physical side of it, Jordan? So, you told me earlier that you have lost, I think you said 77 pounds. You personally have lost 77 pounds doing jujitsu. So, that's a significant
About
weight
that.
loss. And also, from the look of you, if people are just listening to this, they can't really see Jordan. But if you are viewing this podcast right now, you can see that Jordan is very, very well fit. He looks shredded from this perspective right now,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
he's
I'm cutting
training
through it
for a
quite
fight
as
pretty.
well at
He's
the
training
moment.
for a jujitsu match. Yeah, yeah. He said he's got a big super fight coming up, so we wish you luck on that, Jordan. So, but the reason I'm bringing this up, Jordan, is that you have lost 77 pounds. You have found that jujitsu has changed your physical health,
Yeah.
right? So, what do you think that is something that you can inspire the youth to, caring about their physical health more? I mean, I think as a youth leader, leading them by example is important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on it perfectly. Like leading by example, you know, it's kind of thing where it's like, how can you, expect to say to someone, hey, you should be doing this and like doing this and that. But if you're not actively doing it yourself, like who are you to say, hey, you can do this? But I'm not, but yeah, 77 pounds. I'm not sure what it is in kilos. I remember we had this conversation. I'm like, I don't even know how to use pounds. But yeah, but through that, consistency, just slowly chipping away at it. It's not an overnight process. So being able to have great work, you need to slowly work away at it, and just being able to do that and just see the fruit of your hard work as well at the end is so worth it. Over the 4.5 years that I've been doing jiu-jitsu, where I started at 140 kilo, which again, I have no idea what that is in pounds, and to lose that weight is to me remarkable. And to look back at it is, again, I love seeing it. But to look at it with my youth kids, where I'm able to see them in potentially vulnerable situations to them thriving in their daily lives is incredible. And to being able to be a part of that to help guide them is what makes it all worth it.
Yeah, I mean, do you see physical changes in your kids? Like, have you talked to them about physical health and how they can improve their cardio and lose weight and get stronger? And do you talk to them about those things? And if you do you see a difference in them?
In the right context, absolutely. Like for some kids, it's just not their thing, which is perfectly understandable. Like you try to um talk about what's right for them, I guess. Because at the end of the day, for me, I'm there for them. They're not there for me. But for some kids, yeah, I absolutely love chatting about it, where they talk about how they love sport, they just love martial arts, they love grappling. And I just talk about, hey, this is what I've been able to achieve in my time. Um, and then being able to share, look, this is what you could be doing or what you could do. And then when they do start, just being able to help guide them again and just see them take that step in their fitness and see them excel.
Yeah, getting a little bit better at a time too. I think that jujitsu really teaches teens, especially they can become very impatient with their progress and lose confidence. So I think jujitsu really teaches people to be patient and be consistent and be disciplined because patience plus consistency plus discipline equals success,
Oh,
you know?
absolutely.
So do you see yeah, I mean, in speaking of that, confidence wise, like, do you see, from a mental standpoint, do you see a lot of changes in kids' confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, with success and confidence, well, success can equal confidence, but also remaining humble about it as well. Because I feel, if you're too proud about it, it can be unhelpful. But yeah, it can definitely help with confidence as well. And especially when you've got the success to back it up, as well as when you have other people noticing the changes in you, it really helps with that confidence as well.
Yeah. And, the other thing I was thinking about a lot with when we were thinking about connecting jujitsu and youth leadership is the character building concept that, jujitsu has a lot of character building principles naturally built into it. And so I think character building is a huge part of what jujitsu can offer youth, especially teens. And one of the character words that I'm thinking of off the top of my head right now, you mentioned earlier, which is respect. You said that earlier. You were talking about how on the mats, you have no choice but to respect each other when you're training. So can you talk about your jiu-jitsu experience and how you've relayed that information about respect to your students or to your teens that
Y-
you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like for me, jiu-jitsu is one of the most humbling sports ever. Like you can walk in thinking, oh, I'll be fine. I'll be able to, smash through everyone, only to have somebody who's, maybe a four-stripe white belt, um, coming in absolutely making your life miserable for your trial class. And it's a very humbling experience, but you learn to respect. It's like, okay, there's people who've been working at this, have that experience. And then you slowly learn to, okay, respect, like, okay, there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not as simple as, you're a bodybuilder, whatever it may be, that you walk into the gym. It's not that simple. So yeah, but that also comes with, you know, understanding to respect everyone, because everyone has different experience levels, backgrounds, whatever it may be. So you learn to respect that. But it also flows into youth leadership and life in general, I believe as well. Because you don't know what because you only seen the book cover, but once you start to read the pages, you learn to respect them, which I think is extremely vital as well.
Yeah, that's I never heard it put that way, Jordan. That's really interesting way to put it. When you start flipping the pages and you start reading the pages, you start to develop more respect for the book. I never heard it put that way, but I like that.
Yeah, it's a good analogy, I believe.
Very similar, very similar to jujitsu, really. I mean, that's a really good analogy to training on the mats because the more you learn, the more you respect the art, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
So, yeah. Another thing, a character building type of word that I was thinking of with working with teens is responsibility. Because I feel like, as a teenager, like learning about responsibility is so key to them being able to, succeed in life.
Yeah,
So can you talk
exactly.
about like how you think jujitsu, how does that help jujitsu, your youth leadership experience? How does that help jujitsu and how does jujitsu help that in terms of responsibility?
Yeah, of course. I guess with jiu-jitsu, you learn to be responsible for your actions. Because you could very easily injure someone unintentionally. But the more you grow into the sport, the more experience you have, you learn to be responsible to look after your training partners, look after yourself, as well as when you're um, at a competition. I'm going to use grappling industries as an example. You learn to be responsible to represent yourself, represent your gym, and once you have more responsibility and respect, you learn to have a good reputation, and you're able to, I guess, share more as well. But with the youth leadership work as well, you want to let people have a certain level of responsibility and respect that. Because you don't want to feel like you're restricting them all the time. And taking away their responsibilities. But also, I think with that also comes accountability. Because if you don't, no one's going to call you out on something maybe you're doing wrong. And where's that responsibility coming in? So I'm very much, if you see it, call it out, but in a respectful way as well, because you don't want somebody to call you out and then come off as angry, bitter, whatever it may be, in a calm, respectful way where, it can help mature that responsibility in both the leader and new youth kid as well.
Yeah, definitely. I like how you brought up accountability, Jordan, because, accountability is kind of naturally built in jujitsu.
Yeah,
Because,
exactly.
you're rolling on the mats and, if you get tapped, I mean, you have to that's taking accountability for the fact that you made the mistake enough to get tapped, right? So it's a kind of a natural accountability builder, right? So can you relate that to youth leadership and like maybe things that you could like information that you can teach your teens that you work with about that?
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned like just being tapped out. Because when you start out, there's definitely like submissions where it's like, why am I being caught in this? And the more you get into it, there's different levels of like difficulty and all that, where it's like, this is horrible. Why am I being caught in this? But you learn to be accountable. You tap it. It's like, okay, I've been caught in this. Great, we can still train. Hopefully, like I like to think of it in the jiu-jitsu with my jiu-jitsu, tap early, train tomorrow, because you don't want to, potentially injure yourself because you didn't tap. So you want to be accountable and responsible enough to recognize that, hey, it could have gone much worse, which I think flows well into youth leadership as well, where you recognize, hey, accountable, responsible, like this could have gone worse, or hey, I've potentially done something wrong here, or it could have been worse, and being accountable and responsible to say, hey, I've done that. What can I do to move forward? I like to say, because you don't want to move on and just forget what's happened. It's like, no, you want to be able to learn from what's just happened and use that experience and learn from it. So I like to say, move forward and not move on.
Yeah. Taking accountability for a teen is so important for their success because you have to take ownership of things in life. You make a mistake, you have to be able to admit the mistake, take accountability for it, and be able to correct those mistakes and better yourself. And that I think jujitsu naturally teaches that. So I think it's a really good thing for anybody out there who works with teens, works with youth, and try to incorporate that concept with them as much as you can. So it's going to help them be successful, especially adolescents and teens. So how about goal setting, Jordan? So like another thing I was thinking about with being a youth leader is these kids need goals. They need short-term goals, long-term goals. And how does that apply? Do you see a connection there with jujitsu and that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that you touched on goal setting as well, because I feel like, you know, very much in general in life where you need to have something you can work towards. Like, I know for me personally, I'm a massive Lego fan. Like, how do you work towards it? It's like reading an instruction book. Okay, you slowly put the bricks together to find the final product or the final build, whatever it is. Besides that, with jiu-jitsu, it's like, okay, you may be wanting to slowly work towards your blue belt or a competition gold medal or earn a strike. It's like, okay, you set that goal for yourself. And I think being very clear about it and make sure someone else knows about it so they can help guide you, keep you accountable as well for it, and then slowly working away at it. I like to say Rome wasn't built in a day because, great work takes time. Like you need to slowly chip away at it. So I think it's important as well to recognize, hey, this is what I've done so far to work at my goal or towards my goal, which I think is very beneficial to actually goal setting as well, seeing the work that you've done. And that flows into youth leadership and just goal setting with youth kids, because they may want to, for example, break from addictions, bad family dynamics, whatever it may be, setting that goal of, okay, how can I, stop this cycle of addiction, whatever it may be, and guiding them through that. And it's like, hey, you've perhaps been sober for a month, and actually congratulating them for taking that step and taking that time to put that work in. So yeah, I do think it's important to the goal. And it's like, okay, what can we do, and recognize the work that's been put in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and you mentioned about accountability partner. I think that's something that I try to actually do in our gym when we have a new student come in. I try to give them an accountability partner to keep them coming. So, because I think it's the power of people. The great
Yeah, of
thing
course.
about jujitsu is you have other people training with you, doing the same things, having the same types of goals. Maybe some people are competitors and some people are not, but the general idea of having common goals in jujitsu are the same in that, the physical and mental health benefits that jujitsu gives people. So do you think that that type of environment for you in jujitsu has helped you to understand how important that environment is also in youth leadership? The teens that you work with, they're around other teens, right?
Yeah,
And those other teens are going to have influence on them. Can you talk a little bit about that for our
yeah, of
viewers and
course.
listeners?
Yeah, of course. I like to say, like who's in a fight, like who's the people, like five people you're closest to, and you tend to be like them, like you tend to be just like your environment. And I feel like that you're a representation of that. And I feel like you get to learn very quickly the quirks of that, the pros and cons of it. And when you're rolling afterwards, you tend to, well, for me personally, I like to just have a chat and say, maybe, and just learning from everyone. It's like everyone has a different reason as to why they're training, and just being able to talk about it. And I've had some really powerful conversations just by doing that alone, and just understanding it's like, I'm very grateful I'm in this position. I'm grateful I've been able to hear from this person and learn from their experiences. And I feel like and using that same framework, I guess, in youth leadership and in life in general, right? And I feel like it's important to recognize that as well and learn from that.
Yeah, the power you mentioned about being the five people that you're closest to, having the power of five people, around you that are positive influences in your life, that can apply definitely for teenagers and definitely in your youth program because, if you can get five kids that are changed through jujitsu with having great character, having good confidence, having emotional maturity, changing their physical health. There's so many different things that we get from jujitsu, but if you can get five kids in your teen program, those five are going to influence another five, another 10, another 20, right?
Yeah,
And it multiplies from there. So I think that's great that you can apply that and start implementing that and see the results of it because it takes time to see those results, but they'll come.
exactly.
All right, it is tap out time, Jordan.
We
So
love
this
it.
is the time of our show we just added recently. We added this recently. Frank did in our last episode. And well, let me say this. In previous episodes, Frank has done a tap in time where we tap into our viewers and listeners and ask them to share some of their stories or comments on the episode. But we now are doing a tap out time at the end. And the tap out time is for us to wrap it up and talk about some takeaways from it. Okay. So we're going to tap out now, Jordan, and talk
Oh,
about some
good.
takeaways for our viewers and listeners as to what they have gotten from this episode. So thank you, Jordan. This has been amazing. You saw the changes that jujitsu can make in your physical health, and you were able to apply those in your workplace by leading by example. And I think leading by example, we talked about, was really important. That really sticks in my mind. And another thing is the emotional maturity that you talked about. I liked how you talked about how it teaches you to be able to stay composed and not get angry, and be able to get to that next position that you need to in jujitsu, and also in life. For teens, it's really important for them to be able to have the emotional maturity to be able to relax, breathe, stay composed, and be able to make good decisions in life.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really good takeaway for our listeners as well. Jiu-jitsu naturally builds that respect and responsibility. And explain to our listeners and our viewers about how the respect and responsibility that you've learned through jiu-jitsu, and how you can translate that to your teens, and how it can help them be more successful. That's great, Jordan. Do you have any last minute advice or anything that you'd like to give to our listeners and viewers?
The only thing I would share is, again, it takes Rome wasn't built in a day, and consistency is key. If you're consistent and just constantly putting in the work, going to training where perhaps, you may don't feel like it, or you've had a bad day, which everyone has bad days. And I don't want to take away from that. But as long as you're consistent, you will see the fruit of your work. And if you're consistently seeking feedback from your coaches and learning, hey, okay, this is what I can improve on, or okay, I'm doing this well, what can I do to change that? That can flow into other parts of my game. So staying consistent helps with seeing the fruit of your hard work.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jordan. This was great. We had some really valuable information here. And I think, is there anything, I mean, with youth leadership, if you can get this out to people, to our listeners, this is a little bit of a call to action for our listeners and our viewers. Youth leadership through BJJ. Jiu-Jitsu teaches a lot of great character building, a lot of great leadership qualities, and being able to apply those qualities into the lives of teenagers is amazing. And every teenager should be training jujitsu, right, Jordan?
I wish everyone trained jiu-jitsu. I wish everyone did. But it's all right. It's all right. It's not for everyone, but we meant.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jordan.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime you want to come out to Boston, we always invite our guests to come out. I mean, if you can make it out to Boston at some point, I know it's a long trip from Australia, but
Yeah.
if you can make it out to Boston sometime, look us up. We're about an hour outside of Boston, so if you fly into Boston, we could even pick you up, bring you to our gym and have some fun.
Are you
I
primarily gi
except
or
I
no
except
gi?
I don't know if I wanna feel you. I don't know if I personally don't wanna feel your top pressure, Jordan. I mean, looking at the size of you and being a young athletic blue belt, I personally don't wanna feel your pressure on top, but I'll let my students feel it.
I'll let my students feel it. That's hilarious. I love that.
Alright, Jordan, have a great day, buddy.
You too.
Bye-bye.